Lynn stood in her new rented room, still holding the key. The room was small, with white painted walls that had yellowed, and a window fitted with frosted glass. The ceiling fan spun slowly, making a faint creaking sound. Everything was simple, except for one item that looked much newer, a tall, dark brown wooden wardrobe pushed against the wall. Lynn stared at the wardrobe for a while. She wasn't sure if it was old or new, but the wood was still glossy and dust-free. The doors were tightly shut, with a tarnished brass handle. Strangely, it was locked. Lynn turned to ask the landlord, a woman in her 50s. Thin, with eyes that always seemed to be weighing something. "This wardrobe, can I open it, ma'am?" The woman pointed to a key placed on the table and softly said, "Of course, the key's right there, but only open it if you really need to. And if you do open it and find yourself unable to sleep, make sure you lock it again, completely shut." Lynn was a bit surprised. "Why's that?" The woman looked away. "Oh, well, every house has its stories. Everyone who rented this room before opened it. After that, they all left early." The answer wasn't satisfying, but Lynn didn't press. She was living alone in Saigon. The rent was cheap and close to work. She couldn't afford to be picky. On the first night, Lynn unpacked, tidied the room, turned on the dim yellow light, and sat down to look at everything in place. She walked toward the wardrobe, picked up the key, hesitated for a moment, then decided to try unlocking it. The left door swung open, empty. A few bare hangers. The lower wooden shelf still looked new. When Lynn reached for the right door, something seemed to resist slightly, but it opened. Inside, it was noticeably darker. Lynn frowned and leaned in closer. At the bottom of the wardrobe, a piece of paper was wedged in a crack, as if someone had tried to shove it down but then forgot. She pulled it out, laid it flat on her knee. The paper was yellowed, handwritten, in slanted script. "If you've opened it, lock it again before midnight. Don't let it step out." Lynn clutched the note and glanced back at the wardrobe. Nothing. Just a wardrobe. No ventilation holes. No hidden doors. No mirror inside. She chuckled softly and mumbled, "I'm just scaring myself." Then she locked it back, carefully turning the key until she heard a soft click. She left the key on the table, placed the note inside the small drawer next to the bed. Around 3 a.m., Lynn woke up to a very faint sound coming from the wardrobe. A soft click, like someone pulling the handle. She turned on the night lamp. No one in the room. Lynn sat up, walked over, placed her hand on the right door. Still locked. Nothing had changed. But, at shoulder height on the surface of the wardrobe, there was a strange mark. Like a hand had touched and slid down. A thin layer of dust she had wiped earlier that day was now clearly disturbed. She looked around, trying to calm herself. "Maybe I forgot to clean that part properly." Lynn stepped back, lay down again, but that night, she couldn't fall asleep. The next morning, while washing her face, she heard someone calling outside the window. "Excuse me, sister." Lynn opened the window. A little girl, about 7 years old, wearing an old t-shirt, was standing below. "Did you just move into room number 3? Lynn nodded. "Yeah, why do you ask?" The girl looked up, her voice quieter. "Did you open the wardrobe last night?" Lynn paused for a few seconds, then asked, "Why do you ask that?" The girl didn't answer, just said one thing before turning away. "Everyone who opened that wardrobe met her." Lynn called after. "Met who?" But the girl had already run off without looking back. That morning, Lynn arrived at work a bit late due to a sleepless night. The ceramics shop where she worked was tucked in a small alley in District 3, not too crowded, but just enough foot traffic to make time pass quickly. Hang, the longest-standing employee, handed Lynn a glass of iced tea. Drying her hands as she asked, "So you've moved into that room for rent? The empty one at the end of the alley?" Lynn took the tea, nodded slightly. "Yes, room number 3. It seems fine, but..." Hang squinted. "But what?" Lynn glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Do you know anything about the wooden wardrobe in that room?" Hang paused for a moment, then leaned against the ceramic counter, speaking slowly. "That wardrobe's really old. Heard it was once an altar cabinet. There was a college girl who used to live there. She often opened it and talked to herself. But it happened a long time ago. No one brings it up anymore." Hearing that, Lynn tightened her grip on the tea glass. Hank continued, "Everyone who moved in after had trouble sleeping. One person even moved out just 3 days later, didn't even ask for their deposit back. Lin tried to sound normal. Probably just a coincidence. Hank placed a hand on Lin's shoulder, speaking slowly. Yeah, that's what I think too. But if you notice anything strange, just lock the wardrobe. Don't leave it open, don't call out, and don't respond to anything from inside. That afternoon, it rained. Lin returned home as the streets shimmered with water. She placed the key on the table. Hadn't even changed clothes yet when the right wardrobe door, locked that morning, was now slightly ajar. There was no sound of opening, no creak. It was just open already, as if waiting for someone to approach. Lin walked over cautiously. She was sure she had locked it. She reached inside to check. Everything was still empty. Nothing had changed. But as the room light cast onto the inside panel, Lin saw faint handwriting on the wood, in faded black ink. Don't let her come out again. Lin stepped back, breathing heavily. She shut the wardrobe, locked it quickly, turned the key twice. She didn't nap, didn't dare reopen it. That night, while reading in bed, Lin heard fingernails tapping lightly on the wall. Tap, tap, tap. 3 evenly spaced taps, coming from behind the wardrobe. She jumped up, ears straining. Nothing. But when she sat back down on the bed, the sound continued. Slow, clear, not loud, but enough to send chills down her spine. Lin picked up her phone and started recording. She wanted proof it wasn't in her head. But when she played back the recording, there was only a soft whisper. You're holding the key, aren't you? Lin immediately deleted the file. Her hands trembled. She locked her door, pulled a towel over the wardrobe as a curtain. Then she got under the blanket, eyes wide open in the dark. Just before midnight, her phone buzzed with a message. An unknown number, no name saved. I can't get out. You can just open it a little. Lin threw the phone onto the bed. She didn't dare look again. But as she turned her face to the wall, the screen's glow cast onto the ceiling, revealing a figure standing behind the curtain over the wardrobe. Still, unmoving, Lin turned on the light. No one in the room. The wardrobe was still locked, but the curtain had been pulled slightly to one side. The next morning, Lin woke up late. She barely slept. Her eyes were swollen, her neck sore from curling up all night. Her phone was still on silent. She didn't dare turn the sound back on. The message from the unknown number was gone. Nothing in the inbox. Lin walked up to the wardrobe, gently tugged the handle. Still locked. She unlocked it and carefully looked inside. Empty. However, beside the old writing, "Don't let her come out again," there was now an additional, smaller, even more faded line. It's so cold. Lin shivered, immediately shut the door, locked it tight, this time adding a rubber band around the handle just to be sure. She tried to reassure herself. Probably left by the previous tenant, just trying to scare newcomers. Then she forced a smile. But the hand holding the key still trembled. That afternoon, while cleaning the glass display cabinet at the pottery shop, Lin asked Hang, "Hey sis, has anyone ever said anything about someone named her? I mean, someone who used to stay in my room." Hang looked up, frowning. There was a student named Huyen. She was sweet, studied fine arts or something. She also stayed in room number 3. Lin hesitated. What happened to her? Hang put the broom down. Her voice lowered. She passed away. No one knows why. They say she hanged herself inside the wardrobe. Lin blinked. Hang continued. Nobody really knows. The door was locked from the inside. But before that, some of the nearby tenants said they heard her talking to herself. One time, a kid staying next door said he heard Huyen whisper something like, "Can you see me yet? I'm standing right here." Lin said nothing. Suddenly, her wrist turned cold, like someone had gently blown on it. That night, Lin tried to act like everything was normal. She played soft music, made tea, cleaned up, and told herself not to open the wardrobe again. But when she got into bed, she found the note she had put in the drawer was now lying right on her pillow. The paper was face up, the words clear. "The lock isn't enough. You had to give me a little something of yours." Lin turned on all the lights, ran to the wardrobe. The lock was still there, the handle untouched, but in the door crack, a small strand of black hair was wedged out, long and thin. She swallowed hard, used paper to seal the gap, then moved her desk in front of the wardrobe. At midnight, while lying down, she heard a knocking sound. Not on the door, but on the wardrobe. Each beat, tap, tap, Tap. She didn't dare open her eyes. But the sound stopped, only to be replaced by a soft voice. Very close. Do you remember the first time you cried in the dark? Lynn clenched her teeth, sat up and shouted, "Shut up, I don't want to hear anything." No one replied. Silence returned to the room. But when she turned on the light, on the mirror hanging on the wall, a message had already appeared. Once you can hear her voice, it means she's already with you. At dawn, Lynn brought the mirror to the window and wiped it thoroughly. She didn't know if the writing last night was real or just a shadow. But whatever it was, it had vanished by morning. She didn't tell anyone, not because she was scared, but because the more she spoke of it, the more real it felt. Hang noticed Lynn looking distracted and asked, "You had another sleepless night, didn't you?" Lynn nodded, voice tired. "Yeah, probably overthinking, or maybe the rain last night just sounded strange." Hang, kneading clay, chuckled softly. "That alley's got a reputation. The folks who used to live there always left early." Lynn whispered, "Did anyone ever say what they dreamed?" Hang paused, then said, "Someone once said they dreamed they were lying inside the wardrobe, locked themselves in, and someone outside was knocking on the wooden door, like counting down." Lynn felt her heart turn cold. That night, Lynn did something different. She hung a wind chime in front of the wardrobe. A ceramic chime, an old item from the pottery shop. It didn't chime loudly, but strong wind would make it ring. She set up her phone to record, pointing at the wardrobe all night, though she didn't want to. She knew she needed proof. 3 a.m. Ting, ting, ting. 3 chimes. Lynn opened her eyes, not daring to get out of bed. The wind chime was swaying, even though the window was tightly shut. She looked toward the wardrobe. The phone camera was still on, recording, but the little light from the phone was blocked by something. Lynn whispered, "Who's there?" A female voice whispered right behind her pillow. "No one, it's just me." Lynn bolted upright, hands trembling, and grabbed her phone. She replayed the recording. In the video, no one appeared. The wind chime swayed lightly. But the wardrobe door slowly opened, though no one was in front of it. Then, a pale, elongated hand reached out and touched the camera. The screen went black. Lynn threw her phone onto the table and ran to the balcony. Cold sweat ran down her back. She stood there until dawn. The next morning, Lynn decided to go to a temple. She wasn't religious, but she suddenly wanted to be somewhere with incense smoke, chanting, and candlelight. The temple was at the end of Nguyen Van Troy Street, small and quiet. A nun saw Lynn walk in and invited her to sit down. The nun looked at her for a while, then asked gently, "Have you brought anything strange with you?" Lynn nodded slightly, her hand gripping the wardrobe key in her pocket. The nun took out a red string and said, "Tie it around the key. Don't leave the key out when it's dark. And, if you hear someone calling your name from the darkness, absolutely do not answer." Lynn asked, her voice shaky. "Why not?" The nun didn't answer. She just looked out into the courtyard. Slowly. "Because when you answer, it means you've agreed to split your soul in two." That night, Lynn tied the red string tightly around the wardrobe key. She placed the key into a small plastic box, sealed it with tape, and hid it at the bottom of her suitcase. Same old room, same old wardrobe, but something had changed. The air felt heavier. No breeze came in, even with the window cracked. Lynn moved the desk back in front of the wardrobe. The wind chime still hung, but no longer rang. She whispered to herself, "I won't open it again. I won't care about anything anymore. Just need to make it through this month." Her words cut off as the room's light suddenly went out. There was no thunder, no power outage in the area. Just, her room light went out as if someone had unplugged it. Lynn, trembling, fumbled for her phone. The screen lit up, a new message, from her own number, as if sent to herself. "Lynn, I'm cold. I still can't get out. But you can still hear me. Can't you?" She wanted to turn off the phone, but her finger froze. At the head of the bed, the curtain covering the wardrobe began to move slightly. She couldn't breathe. The darkness in the room suddenly felt thick. Lynn backed into the corner of the bed, wrapping the blanket around her. She grabbed her earphones and played a chanting audio clip Hang had sent the day before. As soon as it played, the earphones let out a sigh. Not from the audio. A breath right beside her ear. Cold, soft, but real. Lynn ripped the earphones out. Her phone screen lit up, and in an instant, the selfie camera activated. In the image, Lin curled up, and behind her, a figure stood right next to the wardrobe. Long hair covered the face. One hand rested on the wardrobe handle. But what made Lin almost stop breathing? The figure's second arm was placed on her shoulder. She threw the phone, ran toward the door. The door wouldn't open, even though it wasn't locked. The handle felt like it was being held tightly from the outside. Lin burst into tears. She screamed, "Let me go. I don't want to hear. I don't want to know anything. I won't open it again." No one answered, but when Lin collapsed, her shoulders shaking, the door swung open. She dashed outside, barefoot, running down the damp hallway. Hang, just getting off work, saw Lin standing at the gate of the boarding house. Face pale, hands trembling, she rushed over. "What is it? What happened?" Lin clung to her shoulders, lips trembling. "Someone, in the wardrobe, she was standing right next to me." Hang didn't ask much. She brought Lin to stay at her place for the night. A smaller room, but warm, with a yellow nightlight. Lin lay down, unable to close her eyes. But at least that night, she didn't hear any knocking. The next morning, Lin returned to the rental room to pack her things. She didn't plan to stay. But when she stepped inside, the room was exactly the same. The wardrobe still closed, the wind chimes still hanging. On the table, there was a new note, folded into quarters, placed right in the center. No one else had a key to the room except Lin. She opened it. The handwriting was the same old ink. Just one line. "I'm out now. It's your turn." Lin left the rental that very day. She moved in temporarily with Hang, just for a few days, until she could clear her head and decide what to do next. That first night, while lying in the small room at the end of the alley, Lin still didn't dare turn off the lights. She kept her phone on silent, so she wouldn't be startled by any more messages. Hang brought her a cup of hot water, speaking softly, "If you're not feeling okay, we can go see a spiritual master. Not to do any rituals or anything, just to understand what's following you." Lin shook her head. "I'm not sure if it's following me. I just know that, even when I said I wouldn't open it." She still got out. Hang asked gently, "Who?" Lin answered, her voice sounding like someone else's. "The one in the wardrobe." They both fell silent. It wasn't until near midnight that Hang finally dozed off. Lin lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Suddenly, she thought about that line. "It's your turn." "Turn for what?" Lin whispered. She had never agreed. She had never opened the door after midnight. But she still got out. Her phone lit up. No sound, no vibration, just lit up. Lin picked it up. On the screen was a notification from the voice recording app. Auto recording started. Time, 3 a.m. She had never turned it on. Never set it to record. Lin opened the file. The recording contained a conversation, but only one voice. It was Lin's voice, but she didn't remember saying any of it. "Yes, I agree. I'm not afraid. As long as you leave me alone after that." Lin threw the phone to the floor, backing into the wall. She repeated over and over, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." But deep down, a small part of her knew that every night she stared at the wardrobe. Every moment she silently listened to the breathing. That was also a kind of response. The next morning, Lin went back to the pottery shop, trying to act normal. Hang didn't ask, but her eyes followed Lin constantly. By noon, while Lin was cutting packing string, Hang walked over, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Someone's here to see you." Lin looked up. A woman stood at the entrance. Small face, dark circles under her eyes, messy hair, wearing a long dress, unsuited for the hot weather. The woman spoke very softly. "My name is Huyen. You're holding my key, aren't you?" Lin stood frozen before the woman named Huyen. She had never seen her face before, but somehow, just looking into those eyes, Lin knew instantly. Like something buried deep in her subconscious had already memorized that image long ago. She stepped back slightly. What did you say?" The woman didn't step inside. She just stood outside the shop. Voice still calm. "My key. You have it." Lin swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "I don't understand." The woman tilted her head, unblinking. "I've waited a long time. One after another. No one kept their promise. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want a place to stay. I just don't want to be locked away forever." Hang, still inside, looked outside and then turned to Lin, whispering, "Lin, "Who is that?" Lin whispered. "I don't know." Hang stepped outside, lightly touching the woman's shoulder, but her hand passed right through. Like air. The wind inside the shop suddenly stopped. No more traffic sounds outside. The woman named Huyen bowed her head slightly and whispered, "You can't keep saying no forever." Then, she turned and walked away. Her figure glided across the street as if not touching the ground. Her dress swayed gently, no shadow left behind. That night, Lin couldn't sleep. She lay in Hang's room, the light on all night. Under her pillow was the plastic box containing the key, the red string still wrapped around it. Around 2 a.m., Lin heard the sound of a wardrobe opening. Even though she was in a different place, even though there was no wooden wardrobe in this room, the sound of wooden hinges creaking, the wind whispering through a crack, and the sound of bare feet stepping lightly on the tile floor. She opened her eyes, looked around, no one in the room. But, at the edge of the bed, there was a strand of long hair, wedged there, just like the one she had seen beneath the wardrobe door. Lin sat up, heart pounding. She opened the plastic box and took out the key. Her hand gripped it, but she didn't dare let go. Then suddenly, the phone on the table lit up. A note appeared. No one typed it. No one touched the screen. "You don't need to return the key. You just need to give me a place." Lin, trembling, grabbed a pen and quickly wrote on a sticky note, "If I agree, you won't harm me, right?" The phone lit up again. A reply appeared right below. "I won't do anything. You'll open it yourself." The next morning, Lin woke up with a heavy head. She didn't clearly remember when she had fallen asleep. Only that before she closed her eyes, the key was still in her hand. The red string was still intact, but the tip of the key had a bit of wood dust on it, as if it had just been inserted into a real lock. Lin looked around. There was no wardrobe here. Hang's room only had a small plastic cabinet. No wooden hinges, no cracks. But, the musty scent of damp wood still lingered somewhere in the room. Hang knocked and peeked in. "Are you still tired?" Lin shook her head, trying to sit up. "I'm okay, sis. I'm awake." Hang handed her a warm glass of milk, speaking softly. "I don't know what you experienced, but since last night, this room has been unusually cold. And I had a dream. Someone was standing at the door, not knocking, just staring." Lin gently gripped the glass. The heat spread to her fingertips, but her chest still felt cold. She asked quietly, "If I give the key back, will she leave me?" Hang paused, then softly said, "Not likely. She doesn't need the key. She needs someone to hold it for her, to stay in her place. A living soul, one who listens, who fears. That's what she needs." Lin sat through the afternoon at the shop, staring at the wooden cabinet displaying the ceramic cups in front of her. It didn't look like the wardrobe in her room, but there was one familiar detail, the brass hinge, slightly rusted. She tried opening it. Inside was empty. But when it closed, the thud of wood made her flinch. Her phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. "It doesn't matter where you open it. I'll still find you." Lin froze. She handed the phone to Hang. Hang looked for a moment, then shook her head. "If you want this to end, you have to go back. Not to open it, but to face it. If you keep running, she'll follow, in your dreams, in your breath, in the wind, until you finally," Lin whispered, "take her place." Hang nodded gently. "Or she takes yours." That night, Lin returned to the old rental room. The room key was still in her pocket. The row of rental rooms was eerily quiet. Not a soul in sight, though some rooms still had lights on. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room looked untouched, like no one had ever left. The wardrobe still sat in the corner, the curtain covering the dusty wind chime. The air was freezing. The smell of rotting wood was sharp and heavy. Lin stood in front of the wardrobe, took a deep breath, and pulled out the key. She spoke each word clearly. "You want to come out, I won't stop you. But you're already out. You said it's my turn. So what do you want me to do?" There was no reply, but one hinge on the wardrobe door snapped. It swung open on its own, revealing a dark slit. From inside, a shadow stepped out, hair covering the face, white dress touching the floor, head tilted to one side. A woman's voice rose, very close. "Stay for me, just one night. After that, you'll be free. Do you agree?" Lin stood before the half-open wardrobe, neither stepping forward nor daring to back away. The air in the room felt as thick as drying paint. The shadow stood still, no breath, no movement, no blinking, only the voice echoed, softly. Just one night. All you have to do is lie inside. Don't close it, don't lock it. Tomorrow morning, you can go. Lynn could hear the blood pounding in her ears, her heart racing out of rhythm. She asked again, only one night, really? The shadow tilted its head slightly and nodded. Lynn inhaled deeply, her fingers tightening around the red thread. She had no other choice. If she kept running, the spirit would follow. But if she agreed, maybe it would all stop. She stepped forward. The wooden floor creaked beneath her. The wardrobe door swung open fully. Inside was still dark. No smell, no other figures. Lynn sat down, then slowly lay on her side, curling up. The door gently closed. No one touched it, but it slid shut silently. No lock, no click, only darkness, and the sound of soft breathing, like wind. Time inside the wardrobe passed strangely slow. Lynn kept her eyes shut, but she didn't sleep. She heard footsteps pacing outside. Now and then, a soft laugh, like a girl sitting nearby, talking to herself. Then, something tapped the side of the wardrobe. 3 times, evenly spaced. Tap, tap, tap. The woman's voice whispered right beside her ear. Did you know? The last person who lay here fell asleep forever. Lynn didn't respond. She remembered the nun's words. Don't speak in the dark. The spirit whispered again. I promise I won't keep you. But if you open your eyes now, you'll see where I live. Lynn squeezed her eyes tighter. Her hand clutched the key tightly. Beside her, the voice turned into a constant whisper. Open your eyes. Just a little, just enough to see me. It repeated, over and over, until suddenly, everything fell silent. Lynn woke up inside the wardrobe. Morning light streamed through the narrow gap. The air was stuffy, but no longer cold. She pushed the door. It opened easily. The room was unchanged. The wind chime hung still. The wardrobe hadn't shifted. Lynn stepped out, her body sore all over. She looked around. No trace of anything. No hair, no paper, no voice. In her hand, the red thread was still wrapped around the key. Lynn whispered, "It's over now, right? I kept my promise." A breeze blew through the doorway. Soft. No one answered. But, as Lynn turned to leave, the face reflected in the wardrobe mirror didn't quite look like hers anymore. It looked colder. It stared back at her without blinking. Without turning away, Lynn stood silently before the mirror. Reflected there was her, same hair, same pajamas from last night. But something was off. The girl in the mirror didn't smile, didn't blink. When Lynn slightly tilted her head to the left, the reflection in the mirror didn't move. Lynn stepped back, a chill running down her spine. She whispered, "That's impossible." She looked around. The room was still exactly the same. The wardrobe was open, daylight streaming in. She picked up her phone, turned on the selfie camera. Everything looked normal. It was her, nothing wrong. But when she looked back at the mirror, the figure inside was still standing, in the same position. Unchanged. Lynn suddenly understood. Whatever had come out of the wardrobe didn't need to walk. It had borrowed some part of her to remain outside. That afternoon, Lynn went to the pottery shop. Hank saw her and immediately asked, "Are you all right? You look pale?" Lynn forced a smile. "I'm fine, just sleep-deprived." Hank suddenly paused, looked more closely, then said softly, "Do you remember this morning, when I called you?" Lynn frowned. "You called me?" Hank pulled out her phone and showed a call at 7 a.m. "You picked up. I even heard you say, 'I'm already here. Wait for me.' But I've been waiting all morning and you never came." Lynn shook her head. "I never touched my phone this morning. I woke up and came straight here." The two stared at each other. Neither spoke. In the shop, a ceramic cup suddenly fell from a shelf and shattered. No one had touched it. That night, Lynn returned to her room. She didn't want to sleep. Didn't dare turn off the light. The mirror on the wardrobe still reflected her, but, sometimes, the girl in the mirror smiled faintly. Even though Lynn remained still. Lynn covered the mirror with a towel, then layered thick paper over it. She turned away, whispering, "I did what you asked. You said one night only. Now leave me. Leave me alone?" No response. But her phone displayed a new notification. The recorder app had started automatically again at 3 a.m. She trembled and opened it. In the recording were 2 voices. One was hers, weak, tired, The other was a low, slow, familiar female voice. Lin, you'll keep your promise, right? Female voice. Yes, one night. Lin, then, go. Female voice. I've gone. But you forgot one thing. Lin, what? Female voice. I never said who would take your place. Lin sat by the window, staring down the damp alley after a night of rain. In her mind, that final sentence from the recording kept repeating. I never said who would take your place. A soft sentence, but like a needle pricking endlessly at her thoughts. She suddenly remembered the night she lay in the wardrobe. There was no lock, no restraint. The spirit only needed someone to step in willingly. But what she hadn't realized, each time someone lay inside, something was left behind. Lin returned to the pottery shop the next afternoon. Hang was glazing pottery and looked up, smiling. You look less pale today. Lin gave a faint smile. I want to ask you a favor. Hang nodded. Anything. Lin lowered her voice, speaking each word clearly. If one day I'm no longer myself, if you see me speaking strangely, if my eyes don't look the same, help me, lock me up. Hang froze mid-motion, staring at Lin for a long time. She didn't smile anymore. Her voice slowed. You're still not free, are you? Lin answered softly. I thought I was, but maybe she's still here. She placed her hand on her chest, where her heart was still beating, but didn't feel fully hers anymore. That night, Lin looked into the mirror one last time. The mirror had been covered for a while, but now she removed the layers herself. No one was inside, just her own reflection. She spoke to the mirror, gently. I'm not afraid of you anymore. If you still want to stay, I won't stop you, but I won't give you anyone else to take. No one responded, but the reflection in the mirror nodded once. Lin brought the key to the riverbank, a small dock behind the temple. She sat for a long time, then tied the red string around the key once more, tightly. She kissed the tip of the key, without knowing why, but as if saying goodbye. Then gently, let it go into the water. The key floated away, quickly, silently. That night, there was no knocking, no dreams, no wind chime. Hang called early the next morning, voice slightly cheerful. Last night I dreamed, I saw you in the pottery garden, wearing white, but your face was someone else's. Long hair, sad eyes. I asked who you were. You just smiled and said, I'm just passing through for one night. Now I had to go. A week later, Lin was still living in the old room. The wooden wardrobe remained in the corner. No one moved it, no one opened it again. She no longer carried the key, nor did she hear any voices in the night. Everything returned to routine. Work, returning home, cooking, mopping the floor, watering the tiny plant on her table. But something quietly shifted in Lin's eyes. One scorching afternoon, Lin was sorting some old ceramic items at the shop when a young girl walked in. She looked about 20, a little hesitant, carrying a square wooden box, an antique-style mirror case, with a round brass lock. She spoke softly. Sis, can you keep this for me just for one night? I have to leave urgently and can't bring it along. Lin looked at the box, then at the girl. The eyes looked familiar, like she had seen them somewhere before, in a mirror, in a wardrobe, in a dream long forgotten. She didn't say anything, just quietly nodded. The young girl smiled gently. Just don't open it, that's all. I'll come back for it in the morning. Lin bowed slightly, carefully taking the box, very gently, very lightly. When the girl left, the shop fell silent for a few seconds. That night, Lin placed the box on the table. She didn't touch it, didn't open it. She sat quietly beside it, holding a cup of cold tea. A breeze slipped through the window. The wind chime rang faintly. Inside the wardrobe, a beam of light passed through a crack, illuminating a trail of dust floating gently. No one called, no messages came, but Lin smiled, softly saying, You don't need a place anymore, do you? Now, it's my turn to keep it for someone else. She sat like that, until the night fully settled in. Not sleeping, not awake, just drifting quietly between two shores of something still unnamed. The next morning, the box was still there, but the girl never returned.